segment.
Despite your political differences, how important do you think it is to work across the aisle? Specifically, what in your past gives voters good reason to think you would do so?
Well, Mr. McCready, let me start with him this time because we started with you last time. Mr. McCready.
My entire campaign is built on working across the aisle. Our slogan is country over party. And I'm really proud of that because it's how we fought in the Marine Corps. We didn't care what political party you're in. We had a mission that was about this country. It was about putting our country first. That's how I worked in business. I worked across the aisle to build solar farms. I worked with Republicans and Democrats. I don't think any party has a monopoly on good ideas. I think the problem we have is career politicians, they make all these promises. They get up to Washington, some kind of light switch goes off in their minds, and it's just about their own re-elections. It's about whatever their party says. It's not about how to reach across the aisle and make things happen for North Carolina families. In my comprehensive health care plan, as well as my comprehensive prescription drug plan, one of them has 7 initiatives, the drug plan has 10 initiatives. Every single one is nonpartisan. It's the best ideas from either party so that we can work together to, I think that's what North Carolinians, that's the leadership that North Carolinians deserve.
Mr. Bishop, to you.
The problem with Dan's answer is, and it gets at one of the real choices in this clear choices in this campaign. It's between a choice between a bunch of promises on the one hand and a record of legislative accomplishment on the other. He says it's his slogan. That's exactly right. It's an empty slogan that he says he wants to work with Republicans and Democrats. The only situation where he can cite that he says he's worked with Republicans and Democrats is on that special tax break that put $18 million in the pockets of him and his partner. That's not bipartisan work in behalf of people generally. I, on the other hand, have a successful record of bipartisan accomplishment. We cut middle-class taxes. We raised teacher pay 5 consecutive years. That is and then just last Sunday, with a bipartisan vote, a large bipartisan vote, we reduced the cost of health insurance to employees of small businesses and the self-employed across North Carolina.
Senator Bishop, thank you. Gentlemen, we're going to take a short break right here. Back with more right after this. We're going to begin with a question from Dan Bishop to Dan McCready.
Thank you, Jamie. Dan, you made reference to the occurrences in the previous running of this election cycle. And in the news about that, we heard a great deal about the conduct that you referred to from someone named McCready Dallas. But tonight I want to ask you about Lola Wooten. She turned in excess of 200 applications for absentee ballots. She signed as a witness on the ballot envelopes for many, many people. She was paid by the Bladen County Improvement Association. The Bladen County Improvement Association, in turn, was paid by the federal account of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and the federal account of the North Carolina Democratic Party was funded by your campaign. Can you explain what steps you took to ensure that Lola Wooten wasn't harvesting ballots or influencing elderly and infirm people in the completion of their ballots? And is your concern about that issue connected to your opposition to the passage of voter ID constitutional amendment in North Carolina last year that voters approved by a vote of approximately 60%?
Mr. McCready.
Let me answer this question by sharing my horror that after the largest case of election fraud in recent American history, a fraud that took place in our towns in North Carolina, where people lost their very right to vote that our service members have died for overseas and people have fought for here on the home front in the battle for civil rights, by people that Dan Bishop supported, instead of offering one bit of remorse or one bit of sympathy or any shred of accountability for what happened, Dan Bishop is now trying to blame Democrats for the fraud. I think this shows you what kind of representative he would be in Washington.
Mr. McCready, you now get a question to Senator Bishop.
Senator Bishop, you reacted quite defensively when I pointed out that you were the only person from either party to vote against a bipartisan bill to let patients get lower cost drugs. And as part of your answer earlier in the segment, you said that the reason you didn't vote for that bill was that you didn't read the bill. That bill was 3 pages. It was shorter than green eggs and ham. So if you won't read a bill in Raleigh that's shorter than green eggs and ham, how can people trust you to fight for their health care when you get to Washington? And how can we trust what you said here on health care tonight since Big Pharma is funding your campaign?
Dan, I note first of all that you didn't answer any questions about how your money from your campaign found its way into the hands of Lola Wooten and her activities in Bladen County. And I guess that's fairly typical. You don't seem to want to answer questions. I don't mind answering questions. Let me explain it since you've attempted to distort it. What happened with that bill is this. There were companion bills in the House and the Senate, and they both started off in pretty rough shape. In the Senate, I was in two committees, the Health Committee and the Judiciary Committee, and we fixed the bill in the Senate, and when it came to the floor, I voted for it because it was a good bill. Now, on a late evening at 9:40 p.m., the last week in session, and you would know something about this if you had any legislative experience, the companion bill from the House to that same bill was called up on a motion by the Rules Chairman, along with 18 other bills added to the calendar. It's something of a frenzy in that last week of session. I had floor management responsibility for the bill that was considered immediately before this one. And as a consequence, I did not have any time to look at the bill or to verify whether the same important changes that I had been part of to make that bill as good as it was when it left the Senate, that whether they had been made to that House version. Consequently, because I think it's irresponsible to cast votes, as Nancy Pelosi suggested, to find out only afterward what's in the bill, I cast a vote against that bill. Now, to go and spend millions of dollars in advertising, claiming that I opposed the policy behind that bill, reveals a lack of integrity in your campaign. And it's exactly what's happened by virtue of relying on millions of dollars of attack ads from dark money groups that contain lies.
Senator
and
Bishop,
if they're worse,
thank you.
involve
May I-
We've
character
used up your time.
assassination.
Mr. McCready, a final word on this.
Well, look, it'd be one thing if this was the only vote that State Senator Bishop had taken to take away people from health care, but it's one of a million votes, one of 10 to let insurance companies hike prices on life-saving cancer treatments. As the chair of the Health Committee in the State Senate, blocking Medicaid expansion, which he didn't address tonight, keeping 200,000 North Carolinians from not having health care, and sending our tax dollars we're already paying to other states. And when he did vote, he voted for a sham health care plan where if you get sick, he does not require the insurance company to even pay for your medication. I think it's clear on this stage who is the candidate who will work across the aisle and fight for people's health care and our public schools, and who is the candidate in the bed with Big Pharma.
I want to give you a few seconds.
I get a response.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's talk about Medicaid expansion, because it indicates everything about Dan McCready's health care policy. He wants to have more government domination. The Medicaid expansion that he proposes would be expensive. It is a system that doesn't work well for people, and it would put people who are most in need at the back of the line. It would take 300,000 people who can now get policies that are subsidized under ACA, and it would shift them into this government program. And ultimately, what the objective of the far left people who fund your entire campaign, Dan, is that they want to have government dominate all health care. They call it Medicare for all, but it would be the VA for all, or Medicaid for all. That is not good for America.
I need to end the conversation here, only so we have time for our closing arguments. I don't want to shortchange you on that. We have come to the final moments of our debate tonight. A very short time remaining, so we're going to give both of the candidates 30 seconds to give us a closing statement. Before we began tonight, we did flip a coin to decide who would speak first, and we begin with Dan McCready.
I think I won the coin toss.
You did, which your campaign said you wanted to speak last.
Okay. You're welcome to go first if you'd like.
That's fine.
Look, I don't know about y'all watching tonight. I have a feeling you're as tired of the career politics and the career politicians as I am. I think we got to get some people up to Washington that have done some real life things. People who have led Marines during combat operations. People who have built businesses from scratch. People who are interested in working across the aisle and making people's lives better here in North Carolina. I don't think anyone should go to Washington as a Democrat first or as a Republican first. They should go as Americans first. And my promise to you, if I have the honor of serving you in Congress, is to reach across the aisle, to go as an Americans first, to make lives better for people in North Carolina that deserve a lot better.
Mr. McCready, thank you. Senator Bishop.
Thank you, Jamie. I want to thank the viewers in WBTV and the Charlotte Observer. I ask voters in this matter to look at my record. Don't vote based on platitudes or slogans. and certainly not on smears and character assassination or falsehoods. I'll keep fighting to grow the economy, to put money in your pocket, to create good-paying jobs, to preserve our freedoms, to secure our border, and to advance common sense. Dan says he believes in these things too, but his policies
Senator,
say otherwise, and those far-left sources that fund his campaign, his entire
Senator,
campaign,
thank you.
say otherwise too.
We are running out of time. I appreciate both of you being here tonight. We hope you learned something tonight. We appreciate you watching.